we would have like actually introduced you.
Nope.
What the fuck was that? Nope.
Everybody come and catch the show. You want dad jokes, they got plenty of those. So relax and listen on as Dev and Kyle start the apocalypse.
Yeah.
There it is. This week's episode of Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse has a special guest, Amanda, Dev and Kyle's head designer. She's a big sports fan in general and a world football, aka soccer fan specifically, and she came by to spill the tea on some drama in U.S. men's soccer world. There's actually a few outrageous stories in this episode, but for time constraints we had to leave some juicy bits on the cutting room floor. If you're interested in the nearly 2.5 hour complete version of this interview, please consider becoming a sustaining patron at patreon.com/devandkyle. There's a private feed there where you get access to this full episode and all of our previous exclusives. If you're already an Apocalypto, please grab the full version of this interview from your private feed. Thank you all so much for your support. The show would not be what it is without every like, every subscribe, every view, or every referral to your friends. Now please, sit back and relax, and enjoy this interview with Dev and Kyle and Amanda Start the Apocalypse. So I had to hurry up and hit record real quick because we were having such a great conversation. Hey Dev, how you doing?
I'm doing.
You're doing?
I'm doing. Yeah. I'm here.
Oh, sorry. This is Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse. I should introduce the actual show. If you didn't know you were listening.
If you didn't know that, then what the hell are you doing?
It takes a lot to find this show. So if you accidentally found this show, hell yeah. Speaking of people who accidentally found the show, there's a guest this week, Dev.
Yay! We like guests.
We like guests.
Be our guests. Be our guests. Put our magic to... I don't know the rest of the song.
To the test, Dev, and the
To
test
the
that you're
test.
giving him is the legal test for how much of that song you can sing before the big D comes after us.
Come at me, mouse.
Dev and Kyle's head designer, Amanda, is with us tonight. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing great. I mean, like you guys said, I kind of just wandered in here off the street.
Literally, you wandered in the middle of
I
the conversation.
quite
like a
literally
child.
did. Listen, first you called me a boomer. Now you got to make up your mind.
There are many boomers that act like children, so it's...
That is fair. And we're going to talk about some today.
Oh, God. We are?
We are.
We're talking about anything you want today. So in the theme of Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse is making friends. And that's what all of our guests have been about. It's about getting to know people who know things that I don't know, people who know things that Dev doesn't know.
There's a lot of people that know things I don't know, because I don't know much, except for us on Jeopardy.
You know all the things on Jeopardy?
Not all the things, but I play Jeopardy. I play I'm using air quotes. We're not recording video because we're lame like that. You have to be special to get the video when we do it.
I had a friend that auditioned for Junior Jeopardy way back when. And I was in 3rd grade, and I remember he came in like all excited for it, like acting like he had already like gotten on the show. And me and my other friend, I think, to be honest, I guess I wasn't good of a friend because I don't remember his name, but we were like, okay, Zach, we are going to help you study for the next 6 months of your life. Get ready. And you know what? To our credit as 3rd graders, we kept him on schedule for a solid 2 days at recess, just giving him books. Read this.
That's like 3 months. Yeah, that's 3 months in 3rd grader, timeline.
Exactly.
Time.
We were like,
Yeah.
You're every capital of the world, you're going to need to know it. Memorize right now.
Did you quiz him, or did you just go to the library and get books that you thought looked thick and bring them to him?
I want to say that we definitely tried to quiz him. I feel like I remember that, but most of it was just like going through like with this like that classic, like literally just holding a tower of books. Like he's gonna need this.
Yep.
Here's the encyclopedia. Learn it.
Yep. Betty Crocker's cookbook. Add it.
This has got a lot of words. You probably need to know what's in it.
Yep.
This is a dictionary. Exactly.
I am the current owner of a third grader, and he had to do a month-long moon observation project. So he had to go outside for 3.5 minutes every night and observe the moon.
He was lunar looking.
Yeah.
He got a real good month because
He did.
it's been rainy, and like 50% of the nights he's gone outside and been like, "Where's the moon?" It's behind that cloud, bud. Nothing to see. And then he just gets to write no moon.
No moon.
No, it's still there.
You were talking about a third grader's perception of time. He believes that he has been observing the moon for an entire presidential term.
Yeah, for sure.
I wish they were that short.
It's been 11 days, dude.
In his future NASA interview, he's going to be like, listen, there's no moon. Trust me, I've researched this extensively. I've looked at the moon for a full month. It's not there.
What is he, a Star Wars character? That's no moon.
And then it jumps back out 2 days later. The moon, it looks the same as it did 2 days ago. There's 20% missing that wasn't there. You have the notes in front of you that you can see. No, he doesn't care. He's very interested in astronomical things when I get the telescope out, but that's not this project, and I don't have that kind of time to get the telescope out every night for his 5-minute observation.
I mean, that's fair.
So Junior Jeopardy, not in his cards.
I think Junior Jeopardy would be in his cards, but he doesn't have somebody to bring him a stack of 19 books to tell him to read them all.
Yeah, just not for the phases of the moon category.
Yeah, anything that comes up with astronomy, he's like, there's no moon. I know. I went out and looked at it for a whole presidential term.
Did I do it in the past when I was in college and I didn't know any better? Of course.
One of my favorite memes is it's like this really bizarre. Those are my favorite ones, just the bizarre ones that don't make any sense. And it reads like one of those ads that you see like stapled to a telephone pole in the city. And it's like moon tarp, 50,000 men are working on it. 10,000 have already died. You will never have to see that son of a bitch ever again. And that's it. But it's actually says, I promise you will never have to see it ever again. And I think it like talks about like the color black of the tarp. It's like that.
Vanta black?
Yeah, the Vanta black.
The blackest black. You can't even see contours with it. It's so black.
Yep.
Which was actually a Jeopardy question at one point. I can't remember, like a year or two ago.
Everything's been a Jeopardy question.
Everything. See, we're cyclical here. I come back to where I had a point, and I came back to it in a roundabout way. Jeopardy. But yeah, I like Jeopardy. I'm going to try out for Jeopardy.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know. We were going somewhere with Jeopardy. Oh yeah, we were talking or the point of the theme of the show and da.
Listen,
soccer.
There's no bringing it back. The point of the show is that I guess the freaking moon tarp people did their job because Kyle's son could not see the moon.
No, we're getting there.
At least we don't have that kind of drama going on with our national team, though.
We would never.
We have like grown ass men acting like children.
We just have the average, like, American parents being mad at their kids' coaches for not giving them playing time drama.
What?
That's quite literally what this whole drama is about. But I don't. Do we want to jump into that first?
But it's worse though because it's like being mad at your kid's coach, who happens to also be your best friend that you've grown up with, who's also your wife's and their wife's are best friends and have been best friends since they were kids. And now you all hate each other and are putting your dirty laundry out
that's
to the public.
That's the TLDR. I can go further into this.
I want to know the ins and outs of this because I only get into U.S. soccer every 3 years for a year and a half. And then I'm like, all right, put it up on a shelf. Then women's come around for in between, and I watch that. This is pretty cool that we're getting back-to-back World Cup years. Thank you, COVID. But this is the only time I've cared consistently for soccer for over a year, and I'm still lost about what's going on.
You think you're lost? I still haven't cared about soccer yet. Take it away.
I'm still trying to figure out fucking offsides. Like, is it offsides? Is it not offsides? This is some bullshit. Like, at least put a fucking line down on the pitch and be like, okay, if you can't be past this line until the ball passes this line. Other than that, is no offsides.
I actually would love the idea of, like, you know how in American football they have like the first down guys that run down the field with the markers. I would love that in soccer. You constantly see those guys just running up and down the field trying to, because like it's a flowing game. So like I'd imagine that they'd have to have subs, for those guys, but I think it would be great.
Or do some kind of automated thing. Put fucking drones out there that do it back and forth.
Well, so they do. They have automated systems. It's just that the people, running those systems and that are watching it sometimes don't make the right decision.
But if you had a visual, like an actual physical drone out there to where it's a visual for players to go, all right, I can't run past that.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, that's not there. You gotta use your eyeballs and just.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Because then they do the play and it's like, just one milliscrap of a piece of fur on his arm was past this other player. Offsides.
Yeah, and that's what kind of bothers me for some of it, because like the offsides rules, like there's a lot of like intricacies to it as well, and they change kind of year by year as like the governing bodies of football decide to improve or unimprove it. And so like one of the rules is that you can't be offsides with a body part that you can't score from. So like technically, like if your hand is like, have you seen those VAR pictures where it shows the offsides result? So like if your hand is like past that line, you technically shouldn't be called offsides because you can't score with your hand by the rules of football.
Oh, I was going to say by the rules of high school, easily.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't get that right. Like I've seen players called off for stuff like that, but then like sometimes it'll be like your elbow, and so like sometimes they'll like discuss whether or not you can score with your elbow or not, because like technically the rule is from your shoulder up that you can score from. It's crazy. They need to just stop this nonsense and just make it clear.
Judge's ruling, you can't score with your own elbow.
Yeah, supposedly, allegedly.
I mean,
Diego Maradona would like to say a few words.
Are we still talking about soccer scoring, or are we talking about like scoring with your own elbow?
Oh, gotta buy a dinner first.
Back to the U.S. drama. If you guys will allow me, I can take you through this from the start. We'll go through the World Cup, then to how U.S. soccer did, and then the drama, because I promise you, like, if I do it any other way, there's going to be pieces that you're going to miss, and you're going to be like, well, how does that make sense? And so...
Your name's in the episode. Take it away.
Story time. Let's go.
I do want to get serious here for a split second before we get into this. I do want to say, take this moment to remember Grant Wall, who tragically passed away during the World Cup. He was out there covering it. And really, like, when I say that he was a pioneer for soccer in America, I truly mean that. I'm pretty sure that he was, like, the first full-time soccer journalist in America. So literally a pioneer. It's just hard to measure like his impact that he's had in the game here. And especially like the women's game as well. Like he was one of the first journalists to really take the women's game seriously and give it the respect that it deserves. And like, Dev, I think you said that you actually have one of his covers hanging up from when he covered Kentucky basketball.
The John Wall cover.
Yeah, so not only soccer, he's been a responsible for a lot of great stories. And, you know, when I think about like the 2026 World Cup happening in America, it's just crazy to think that he won't be here because he was such a big part in, you know, getting us to a point where we can have that. But yeah, I just wanted to take that time to say that. FIFA 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Obviously, there was, you know, quite a bit of controversy about this World Cup.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Just a little.
I don't even care about soccer, and I heard there was controversy.
Yeah, so the FIFA awarded Qatar the World Cup back in 2010. So 12 years from when they awarded it to when they played it. And pretty much ever since like that announcement came, there have been a lot of talks about whether it should or shouldn't be played there. And one of the reasons why that people argued that it shouldn't be played there was because of the migrant workers and this system basically that's called Carfalo, where I don't want to call them slaves, but their passports are taken, the living wages are not very good, their living situations aren't very good. They basically have not great. They're not living great. And it's typically like they're not really given a lot of like worker protection just in terms of like safety on the job. And so one of the biggest concerns about this World Cup was, you know, the amount of workers that were going to die when building these stadiums for the World Cup. But there was an article that was released, I think it was by maybe The Guardian, and they said that it was going to be like 6,000, I don't know. But then the official numbers that were released by Qatar were obviously incredibly lower than that. And I think the real number is somewhere in between. Like, it was proven that the Guardian article wasn't correct. And so just it's kind of like the COVID deaths, like they're listed like differently depending on like what you like look for. So we're never really going to know the amount of people that, you know, lost their lives to this. But either way, like, it's not good. And, you know, I'm going to talk.
It's more than one, which is probably a lot.
Yeah. Well, so during the span of the tournament itself, which was about a little over 3 weeks, I think, 2 workers died. So if you want to use that as a metric to try and, you know, figure it out, go for it. I'm going to talk about, you know, some positives of this World Cup. I just want to make it clear to everyone that like there are definitely positives about this being Qatar, but, you know, my moral line is that, you know, no one should have to die for the World Cup to be played somewhere, which I feel like is a pretty fair point. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's a human rights violation to, number one, when they first announced it, I remember people being up in arms, and I was like, wait, they're going to play the World Cup in Qatar. The World Cup is typically played in the summer.
Yep.
It's going to be ungodly hot. Like, no way in hell anybody's going to be able to go out there and play a game of soccer in that heat and not be in some serious health issues. There's going to be like,
let's not get shitty over the heat. You can live in hot places. It's okay.
Just wait for them to play in Dallas in 2026 in the summer when it's 110 degrees.
And 90% humidity.
Yep.
It gets a little hotter than that in Qatar. Just a little bit. Just a hair.
Yeah. And like the other thing too is that like if you look at like the development of Qatar, it's not just the stadiums that had to be built for this thing, like all the hotels, all the fan sites and everything. So like there's a lot of business and building that went into Qatar that's not even like directly related to the football being played. So, you know, it's hard to really put a number. And not only like just the deaths, but like also think about like the life-changing injuries that happened as well. Like I said, I'm going to talk about some positives. Like there weren't only negatives. I'm trying to like be careful with how I word some of this, not because like I want to anger anybody, but because there's just so many like facets. Is that the right word? Facets to this? Intricacies to this that like it like literally like the deeper you go into this, like the more you see that it's not just like the World Cup in Qatar is just not like this good or bad thing. Like there's a lot of different takes that you can have on it, because for one, like one of the biggest positives that people have said, and that I believe too, is that it's the first World Cup in the Middle East, which I think is something that should be, celebrated. And it's unfortunate that it's going to have like this dark cloud over it in its memory for, these human rights violations. But because it's the first World Cup in the Middle East, a lot of Muslim countries kind of saw it as, even if they weren't from Qatar, they saw it as their World Cup. Like they saw it as an Arab World Cup. And so the people took a lot of pride in that, for good reason. It's the first one. And with it being in Qatar, it allowed a lot of groups and a lot of different countries of like people that, normally wouldn't be able to go to a World Cup because of like visa difficulties and like money problems. They were able to go to Qatar and, finally see the World Cup. And, another thing is that like, I don't know, maybe Dev, you might have seen it. Kyle, I'm not so sure, but right before the World Cup.
I don't even know what you're going to say. It didn't happen.
Right before the World Cup.
Kyle doesn't Google anything either.
Right before the World Cup started, like days, there were these videos coming out of like the fan groups in Qatar, and people were kind of like making fun of them, saying like, oh my gosh, they've paid the migrant workers to be fans of these countries. And like kind of like the Western, media and the Western side of things were kind of like making fun of them. When if you look into it, it's not that simple. Like they weren't being paid, because if you look at like the percentage of the migrant workers living in Qatar, because like the amount of people living in Qatar, most of them are not born in Qatar. Let's be clear. Like most of them are the migrant workers from countries like India, Pakistan, a lot of Southeast Asian countries. And if you look at how good their teams are, they're not. They're shit. I don't even know if they made it on the FIFA rankings. They're so bad. So they don't get like, much like how we didn't have a team to root for in 2018, they haven't had a team to root for pretty much their entire lives. And so a lot of them look at other national teams and they adopt them as their own to support. And that's what people were seeing. But like, there's kind of just, because of like all the negative things with the human rights issues about Qatar, the Western media going into this World Cup was looking at it in a very just like,
it's so hypocritical to say that from a Western media standpoint, because that's exactly what we do in this country. You might not live inside a metropolis or anywhere near one. You're within maybe a 6-hour, 7-hour drive to a big city, and there's 4 or 5 big cities that you could get to in that amount of time. Or it might be a 14-hour drive to get to a big city from where you live. So you just pick the team that you see on TV the most, or a team that you're like, I resonate with a player, or I like their mascot or their colors or whatever, and you just fall in love with them because you have nothing there in your area to follow.
Take it from Dev, who we can draw a direct through line from the teams that were good at their respective sport in the 90s. I don't want to say fair weather fan, but he found them all when he was 14, and he's not a fair weather fan because he's stuck with them. Let's hear it, Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, gosh.
If they were good in 1994, Dev is a fan of them still today, regardless of what city they're in. And
yeah, because where I lived, there was no fucking team at first. When I was in North Carolina, that you couldn't drive 10 hours to get to a professional team.
I also like heard a lot of it, especially when it comes to Argentina. You could see it more with Portugal. People were saying there were more people there, celebrating Ronaldo than they were Portugal. And I get that, like, from,
Fair.
From just, like, if you're a traditional football fan, I understand how that can be annoying to you. But, hey, listen, if I was there and I had the opportunity to go see Messi play, I'm going to see Messi play and I'm going to scream my head off for him. So, like, I can't sit here and judge that. You know what I mean?
Oh, you gotta work on that skill. That's what I do this show. Just sit here and judge.
I mean, I can definitely judge, but not for that. Trust me, my parents will tell you I can judge.
Well, yeah, you're a Philly fan. Of course you're going to judge.
Oh, shush. Listen, I'm going to go throw snowballs at Santa after this. You can come with if you want.
Throw some beer bottles too.
Yeah, there's a lot of like acting high and mighty from like, especially like the more Western Europe areas who have like lived with this, football heritage for so long and get to see star players and extremely high quality of football week in, week out. Whereas like, even in America, we don't get to see that. Like we get those crappy like preseason games where it's not even the best players show up for that, so I understand like the excitement from these groups to like see players that they might have never gotten the opportunity to see before. I completely understand that. The moral, basically what I've learned from this is that, the moral high ground when it comes to football and how countries operate within this space just doesn't exist anymore. Like, because we can talk about the Qatar government using this as a way to sports wash their country. But then, look at who's owning some of these clubs in England and in the Champions League. It's the same people. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. Like, I'm not defending it, but I'm just saying like we can't, if we truly want to make a difference going forward and, make the sport more about football again than it is money, then we have to kind of take ourselves off our pedestals a little bit. You know what I mean?
We need more Ryan Reynolds to buy
God.
teams. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney need to buy more teams, and that'll just solve the
create
issue
their
right
shows about them. But now we can get on to the family drama.
Now that we've gotten the Qatar kerfuffle out of the way.
Yeah, which is what we're all here for.
The family drama with old people acting like little bitches. With a teenager acting like a teenager and then apologizing for it, and then
adults acting like children, yes. And I do apologize for going on so long about Qatar. Just I felt like we should have covered that, before going in.
It needed to be said.
Before we transition to American soccer.
Please laugh.
I'm so excited.
You should be, because I spent a lot of time in anticipation of you visiting.
Oh, good.
The show. This one is just for you.
I feel really special right now.
Okay, good. Why? And I think that this probably is a great parlay into the next section of the show. Why is Cinderella so bad at soccer?
Why?
Because she has a pumpkin for a coach.
But done.
That's incredible. I'm gonna remember that moment for the rest of my life.
Incredibly bad. Zing.
Got him.
Got him. I still laughed.
Yeah, you can't hide it.
I can't hide it. I'm on fucking video. I can't hide it.
For the listeners who maybe can't see it, don't you worry. He chuckled at that
Immediately.
Yep.
I chuckle a lot that doesn't get caught on the mic.
I know who that.
I just gotta like soft chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned it. It's an art. It's an art of not getting caught on mic. And sometimes I'll mute myself if I laugh too much because I don't want people to know that I think Kyle's actually funny. This is all getting cut out. Nobody's gonna hear any of that.
I'm really happy about that.
All right. There's a couple of kids who are playing soccer together, and they say to themselves, maybe someday we'll be world famous soccer players. And maybe even our kids could be world famous soccer players. And then all their dreams come true. And then what happens? And then tell us the whole story, Amanda.
I thought that was a joke. I thought this was like a lead up to a joke. I mean, it is.
It is. It's a joke of what our fucking current U.S. men's national team is.
I thought it was a really long one-liner.
Isn't that U.S. soccer is in general, except for the women's team?
Oh, absolutely.
It's just a really bad long one-liner.
Even the women's team, let's be real, has its issues, which we'll get into.
I didn't even know that.
And they're pretty bad. They might be worse. Actually, it's not a might. They are worse, just in terms of the seriousness of it. Let's take a gander here. So, U.S. soccer, the men's team is currently run by a fellow named Greg Berhalter. He's 49 years old, born in New Jersey, I believe. Former national team player. The problem is, I personally just believe that he is an incompetent coach to every extent of the word. And I feel like a lot of people, even if you don't know soccer, you can kind of see that just by our performance in the World Cup. I mean, I feel like it was driving me crazy, Dev, because everyone was saying, oh, look how good we did. I'm like, we scored 3 goals in 4 matches.
We should have scored more, a hell of a lot more. There was a lot more opportunities and we couldn't capitalize on, which is pathetic.
Did you notice how many wins we got? We got 1 win out of 4 matches. And everyone's like, that's it. Let's go, Greg. We did it. Let's go.
Draws. That's the goal. That's how you win World Cups, is draws.
Yep. Listen, I have like a whole bunch of stats in front of me about like how bad we did, and I could bore you all with that. Basically, all you need to know is that Greg only had 2 work experiences managing before he got this job. One of them was in the 2nd division of Swedish football, and he was fired midway through the season, citing a lack of offense as the reasoning. And since then, he has not improved. And if you want to know, well, how did this guy then become the manager of U.S. soccer? I'll let you in on a little secret.
It's nepotism, isn't it?
Yeah, nepotism. Listen, we've said that, nepotism is a thing in like pretty much all industries, like you can't escape it. But the nepotism that runs within the U.S. Soccer Federation is unlike anything I've ever seen. And if you ask anybody, former players, employees, they will tell you the same thing. U.S. Soccer is run by a boys' club that hire their own friends, their own families to these positions based purely on the fact that they want to keep their checks. They want to keep their own status quo in power. I can promise you that there is a good majority of the people in this group that I'm talking about that do not want to see this sport grow anymore within the country, because the more that it grows and the more attention that it gets means the more opportunity the public has to kind of overthrow their status quo. Like they want to keep their power. They want to keep things the way they are because they like how much control they have. So like to them, U.S. soccer is at a great level right now. And they don't.
You heard it here first. The men's U.S. soccer team is a boys club.
Oh, gosh.
Breaking news.
Yep.
Dun, dun, dun.
They don't have the best interest of the players, which is highlighted in what I was talking about earlier with the women's team. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there was a very big sexual assault and just abuse investigation that came out over the last 18 months. And finally, the Yates report came out in October, I believe. And it just highlighted like all of the abuse and sexual assault that these women have been going through for years. And top people at U.S. Soccer and within the women's league knew about it and just consistently did nothing. Even like the women's head coach, Jill Ellis, who won us 2 World Cups, she knew about it, didn't do anything. And yeah, it's sad. And
didn't you like, and this is a legitimate question for the first time on this show today.
Let's go.
Big question. Didn't or couldn't? Like didn't know anything and didn't do anything or couldn't do anything?
Didn't 100%. I think in this situation, it's always going to be a didn't, especially considering the fact that they knew about these allegations. And one of the coaches, I forget it's Paul something, or maybe Paul.
Paul Bunyan. This the same guy, Ibrahim's friend, right? Same guy?
Unfortunately, no. Wouldn't that be something? He's been all over the place. This is going to make me sound so unprofessional that I don't know his name.
Well, you're on the right podcast for that.
Great.
Well, there goes all your credentials on Twitter.
Oh, no.
You're losing your blue check mark.
Well, I didn't have it in the first place. I'm not. Listen, you think I have $8 to pay Musk?
I thought you had one that you didn't have to pay for.
I'm not. We're not there yet. Maybe one day.
Those are gray check marks, the ones you don't have to pay for.
They changed the coloring.
I found it, guys. I found it.
Did you Google something on my show, Amanda? Get out of here.
I saw Dev Google something before.
I Google. I will Google.
It might have been you.
That's what he does. I can't. He has top billing. I can't make him stop.
I Google things. I'll be like, I'm going to prove that I'm wrong or right about this somehow.
I drink and I Google things.
And I was right. It's Paul. It's Paul Riley. they were actually like considering him.
Never trust a guy with 2 first names.
That's what they say. They were actually considering him when Jill Ellis left to be the national team coach, even though they knew all this shit about him. And he's literally like the biggest person against that's like thrown under the bus in these investigations. And kind of like the reasoning that they give for it, and that is because the NWSL, which is the current women's league, is pretty much the only women's league in America that's been successful for soccer. Like, there have been so many iterations before that have they haven't managed to last just because, like the lack of interest. And so after the 2015 World Cup, when, we won and there was a bunch of that added women's soccer interest, like that was kind of the jump start that the league needed to keep itself afloat. But because of that, the U.S. soccer hierarchy and the NWSL hierarchy were like so caught up in keeping the league alive that they thought that any bad like rep coming from it would just throw away all the chances. And so when they heard about these things, not only like did they not care because it's their buddies, right, that they've known for a while, but they were like, well, because it wasn't just like the men, it was like the women in the hierarchy positions too. They were like, we can't bring this out because it will crash the league.
I don't understand why upstart leagues think that bad press is going to sink you. Because look at the NFL. Those guys generate bad press on the regular.
On the week.
And they're still successful. And they've had lots of upstart leagues who also had bad press. Like, it was an equal amount of bad press coming out of the XFL. And you really just succeed on the strength of your product.
I mean, you'll have to ask them, really. Like, I can't say what they thought, but...
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have some members from the UNSFL or whoever the hell that was.
Let me call them up real quick.
We'll be asking them. Well, last week we had Amanda on the show, and she said...
Like, who's Amanda? Basically, if that doesn't paint a picture for you of, like, what types of people are leading this federation, I don't know what will, except for this upcoming family drama. So Greg Berhalter, we talked about him being a shit manager. We only scored 3 goals in 4 games, only won 1 game at the World Cup. And one of the big questions throughout the World Cup was, where's Gio Reyna? And for those of you that don't know Gio Reyna, I'm not like lying when I tell you this. He's pretty much, in my opinion, he has the biggest potential in our current group of players out of anybody on the team. And he's also, a little bit of nepotism here, of course. He's also the son of Claudio Reyna, the first kind of Captain America of U.S. soccer. Like, he's considered a U.S. soccer legend. And Claudio Reyna, not only is he a U.S. soccer legend, he was also teammates with, the man, the myth, the legend, Triple G, Greg Berhalter. They were best friends. Claudio Reyna was best man at Greg Berhalter's wedding to a one Rosalind Berhalter, who, get this, was teammates and best friends with Claudio Reyna's wife, Danielle. They were teammates at UNC Chapel Hill on the soccer team, and they were roommates.
And they were roommates?
And they were roommates. Oh my God, they were roommates.
And they were roommates.
I mean, it is soccer. Cut that out. That's getting cut. The gypsy usage, that's all getting cut.
Speaking of blackmail, though, there's blackmail in the story.
Yep.
There's not a black male, because none of these guys are black, but there is blackmail.
Okay, yeah. And so...
blatant blackmail and admitted blackmail.
Gio Reyna, yes. So that's the background on Gio Reyna and all his connections to this team. And like I said, he's one of our best players and the one that probably has the most potential out of all of them. And he was only featured, I think he had 7 minutes in the England game. He didn't feature at all in our first game against Wales. And then he was brought on for 45 minutes when we were 2-0 down against Netherlands. I was like, oh, fuck it. Okay, now we'll play you. And, while the tournament was going on, everyone was asking, where's Gio? Where's Gio? And the answer that we got was that at first, after the Wales game, was that, well, from Greg, is that, oh, well, he's injured. He has kind of an injury problem that he's resting. It's not bad, but, we didn't want to risk him. And so we're like, okay, I guess. And then things started getting a little bit confusing because then we hear from Gio himself, like, no, I'm okay. I'm ready to play. Nothing wrong. And we're like, somebody's lying here. And I'll give you a guess of who's lying, because it's not Gio. It's Greg, who has also a history of doing this as well, like of lying about whether players are fit. And he also has a history of getting into squabbles with players and just like completely icing them out of the national team for petty disagreements. And so pretty much everyone that follows US soccer knew straight away, well, Greg's lying about this. So like, what's going on here? Why is he lying? And so the World Cup comes and goes, we get knocked out by the Netherlands. And then on December 11th, Greg, good old Greg, my guy, my buddy, my pal, he decides that during a conference where, to his credit, they did say that it was supposed to be like no notes, what's it called? Like off the record. He talks about a story about during the World Cup, about how a player on the team was acting like so badly and like not contributing at all that they almost threatened to send him home. And he basically turned it into a story about how great of a leader he is and like how he's like, well, I forced this player to get up and talk to every single person on the team and apologize. And then he was great from the rest of the tournament on and the matter was closed. Us being us, because of the amounts of reports that had come out during the thing about like, where's Gio? It wasn't hard to piece together that, he was talking about Gio.
But hold on. I just want to do a little math here. Yep. For those of us who don't know. How many players are on a roster?
26. 26 were on this roster.
Okay. How many players are on the field at once?
11.
Okay. So you have 11 people who play. At like a minimum of 11 because you that's the game. Mm-hmm. How many players so out of the 26, how many players play during the tournament once?
I mean, it really depends on the coach. And
like, is it a situation where everybody plays like a basketball roster or not everybody plays like a baseball roster?
It really depends on the coach. For us, we didn't use all our players, but Argentina, in their run, they managed to get every player on the field. I mean, some of that was just because like they were winning so by a lot so that they could afford to like bring on guys and give them that experience. I'd say that, and Dev, you can kind of agree or disagree with me based on this. I'd say that on a 26-man roster, I think you're probably going to use about 20, maybe a little less as your average. Okay. That's my guess.
Yeah, 18 to 20. And then there's 4 guys that are there for
the
like,
vibes.
Reserve.
Where did we leave off? What part of the story?
You were talking about a coup.
Thanks.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Okay, I remember. So December 11th, Greg does that.
A day that will live in infamy.
Quite literally. No,
I'm sorry, because I was asking about how many people are on the field. Like, how hard was the math to figure out?
Not hard.
Like, there's 11 players who started, so it can't be any of them who were little bitches.
Because they were starting.
In Greg's story, right? Because they were starting and they were contributing the whole time. And then there's like, we're thinking 7 players, but probably the vast majority of those reserves were contributing the whole time. So there really is only 1, maybe 2 players that this could possibly refer to.
Yeah.
So Columbo Greg Berhalter is like, I didn't say his name. I just was like a player.
That's literally, I bet you that's his defense too about it. Like, well, it was just nobody in particular, just said a person. But like, yeah, like I was saying, because of like all the questions like surrounding Gio during the World Cup, everyone just immediately knew he was talking about him. And because of in the past, like when he was at an academy in the MLS, like getting a start before he went over to Germany, there were like reports about Gio, acting like a little bit of a brat, which I'm not defending, but like that's going to happen. And also, like, especially within soccer, like, if you're really, really good in soccer in the US, like, chances are you're not really going to run into a lot of competition for a really, really long time. So yeah, you're probably going to get a big ass ego, especially if your dad is fucking Claudio Reyna and an American legend. I'm not like saying that he doesn't need to grow up.
I don't want to correct this, but his mom was actually fucking Claudio Reyna.
True. Very true. I'll give you a vote for that. Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Excellent execution on that one.
Well played. That was a good shot there.
But yeah, everyone knew it was Gio, and Gio then came out and confirmed this in a statement. And he basically, like, I'm not gonna lie, put Greg on his ass with this statement. It was like, but you could also tell that it was. You want to know how you could tell that it was written by his PR manager or like one of his team? Because they used the double space at the end of the sentence. There was like the double space at the end of the sentence, and nobody that's not Gen X was taught typing to double space at the end of the sentence.
Wow. I feel seen right now.
I feel attacked, and I'm a millennial.
Well, listen, am I right though? Or, come on.
I mean, it's still taught to my third grader, so...
Nuts? I was not taught that, but there's no need to.
I'm sorry that your education sucked.
But there's no need to, because in the new computers, they like work it in already, so you don't have to double space.
You don't even have to put a period anymore. It'll just put that fancy blue line underneath.
Yeah, exactly. And then it'll just like do.
But anyways, listen, his PR person definitely wrote it for him, but I do kind of believe that it's his words, or at least like his sentiments. And he basically said that, yes, this was me. Greg told me before, this is important, Gio was told by Greg before the World Cup that he was going to have a limited role going into the World Cup. And so when he went there, obviously, like, this is the biggest tournament of his life. He's 19 years old, and he's known for having, a little bit of an attitude problem. So he is a little bit of a bad teammate. Not, I want to say causing problems, but basically like the lack of effort that he was giving in practice wasn't there. And he owned up to it in the letter. And he said that, once it was called out and I apologized, I really tried to be an excellent teammate and there was no problems going forward. And I was told I was forgiven. And this is what he says. He says, Coach Berhalter and his staff have always preached that, what happens in camp stays within camp, and that, we're not going to go around talking about it to a panel of people, regardless of whether or not they say this is off the record. And so, I mean, it was just like a little bit of a zinger there from Gio, like, God damn.
I said a player. I didn't say Gio Reyna.
I didn't say you.
And then he was like, I feel personally attacked because that was me.
I didn't say double space after a period like a murderer on Old Man's podcast. Instead, I went directly for the effort.
Who puts double space in a formal statement?
Mm-hmm.
Not Gio Reyna.
Not him. Oh my, that threw me off so much. Fuck you guys.
Who puts a double space?
Let's be honest. His dad's Claudio Reyna. He didn't even learn how to type.
Do you think his dad typed it?
No, he typed it and showed it to Claudio, and he was like, you got to put another fucking space in after the period, you dumbass, and popped him against the head. And he was like, I'm sorry, Daddy.
Good old sports parents.
I've sent, like, my mom, like, my essays to, like, edit over to, like, just, like, see if I have any, like, grammatical errors. And she would always go and add the fucking space. And I'm like, Mom, no, we don't need to do that anymore.
Or he may have gone through and just highlighted it and sent it through Grammarly.
Maybe, true.
And it just added the extra space in there for him. And he was like, perfect, done. It did a grammar and spell check. I don't look like an idiot. I'm sending it. In fact, that's probably exactly what happened. He was like, I got this. I don't need anybody to proofread it. I'm just going to run it through Grammarly. It'll fix all my grammatical errors. It'll make it look nice and professional. I'll just copy and paste that shit and send it.
So my oldest son apparently learned about Grammarly because they spend God knows how many millions being the advertisement in front of every YouTube video on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew about Grammarly. So then school starts and he is given a Chromebook and has to write essays, and immediately like opens up a new tab, Grammarly install extension, boom, 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 and puts Grammarly in. The teacher was like, yeah, so he like informed everyone. He's great. He informed all the kids in the class about how they should install this Grammarly.
Oh, God. He's a team player.
Yeah, none of the kids in the class have to do anything, so that they just sit back and like send all their reports through Grammarly. Click, 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 click.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, work smarter, not harder. And then also, it just means that in the 21st century, if you don't put your shit through Grammarly and you miss a comma, you should just get a double F.
True. It's more embarrassing.
And then it should say, use a dumbass.
YOU''SE.
Mm-hmm.
The official plural pronunciation of Kentucky.
They say use in Philly as well. These guys.
I thought it was Yinz.
That's more like Pittsburgh area.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What does Yinz mean?
Yinz guys, I don't know.
It's like use.
Yeah.
No, wait. Hold on. I'm not getting it. Okay, use guys.
I don't get it either. Take it up with the fucking Pennsylvania people.
Hey, don't bring the East Pennsylvania people. This is West Pennsylvania, all right?
I'm not bringing anyone. Wait, but they say Yinz guys?
Yeah, and it's like YINZ kind of.
Yep, it is. It's not kind of. It is.
Yinz. Yeah, Yinz.
Yinz.
Yinz guys.
All Yinz guys. That's what they say. Hey.
Don't shoot the messenger.
I only know this because I had a mentor and boss and friend who was from Pittsburgh he's from Philly, but he lived in Pittsburgh, and he's a diehard Philly fan, but he said Yinz. And he said Yinz was a Philly thing, too.
I mean, maybe it is. I've always heard use, though. I'll be honest.
Yinz and use. It's like...
You've spent a lot of time inside as a millennial, so you might not know what it's like in the streets of Philly.
The mean streets. You've been in fucking Cali. Let's not even talk about that.
That's true. You did a band.
Okay, listen, I don't have a Valley accent. Come on.
You've been all like, oh my God.
I don't even know where we are in the story.
I will tell you. Greg shat on Gio.
Yep.
But he called him a player. Then Gio said, what about what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
And so, okay, yes. So that happens. Now, keep in mind here that Greg Berhalter's contract with the national team expired January 1st. Actually, not even. It expired exactly on midnight of New Year's. And so everyone was kind of debating, like whether or not Greg was going to be called back. The general consensus, I think by most people, was that he should not return just because he's been subpar.
But it's by most people who aren't involved in soccer. Counterpoint, his last name is Berhalter, and his brother was the chief operating officer of soccer in America.
Yep.
So he gets to keep his job, and having his contract expire was merely a formality.
Listen, yeah. Well, that's the worry, but you don't want him back. To people of America that don't watch soccer and think that we did a good job, I promise you, we don't want him back. We only qualified. This is the best group of players that we've had in a long, long time. And typically the US, and maybe Dev can tell you this as well, we typically overperform, what our level should be. And that has not been the case with Greg Berhalter. We only qualified to the World Cup on goal differerential. The way that it works is, in our thing is, in CONCACAF, that's, our region of North America.
God bless you.
Yeah, Gazoon tell you. The top 3 teams in the Octagon, because there's 8 of them, there's 8 teams. The top 3 qualified directly to the World Cup, and then...
Who goes to the World Cup is decided inside the Octagon?
Not that Octagon.
No,
the CONCACAF, God bless you, Octagon.
Yes.
Boring.
Which actually is more than 8 teams.
We should have Gio Reyna and Greg Berhalter get in the Octagon.
Ooh.
I mean, listen, we're going to learn now that Greg has some fighting experience, so I don't know who I would take in that.
He's like great with the legs.
Yep.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
The top 3 teams in qualifying, each team plays the other teams twice. And so the top 3 teams qualify directly to the World Cup. The 4th place team goes into a playoff against the other 4th place or whatever equivalent in one of the other qualifying groups. So like I think ours would have, if we had come in 4th, we would have played like, I don't know, like Australia or something, one of those sorts of teams. And we qualified in 3rd, and we were tied behind Canada and Mexico. We were tied with Costa Rica on points, and the only reason we went through is because we scored more goals than them. And didn't actually, it's probably not even we didn't score as more goals. It's because goal differential is like how many you score minus how many you concede. I think it's more just that like we didn't concede a lot, and Costa Rica did, and so we only qualified based on that. Like, that's barely qualifying.
Who's our goalie?
What? A goalie?
Yeah, who's our goalie? Isn't that the reason that we would have had
I thought you said, what is the goalie?
No, who is our...
What is a goalie?
Why is a goalie, Amanda?
Where is a goalie? How is a goalie? When is a goalie?
Where is the goalie?
When is a goalie? I know that one. A goalie is scored when the volley goes in the holy. That's when is a goalie.
Go, 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 go.
Where's the goalie? The goalie actually is kind of up for debate, and it's another reason why Greg was given a lot of shit because of his goalie choices. Anyways, the goalies that we used throughout qualifying, I think the main 2 were Zach Steffen and Matt Turner. Matt Turner was the one that we used in the World Cup, and for some reason we brought Sean Johnson as well. I don't know why.
The snowboarder?
No, that's Sean White. That's Sean White.
The gymnast?
I don't know. Is he a gymnast?
She.
What?
Yeah, Sean Johnson. The
Oh, you're right. You're right. I forgot about her.
She's the men's goalie. I mean, she would kick ass. Do backhand springs and just kick it right out.
I mean, shit, you're right.
The 1988 disgraced Canadian sprinter, Ben Johnson. That was his name.
And then we brought Ethan Horvath, yeah, for some reason.
Horvath,
yeah. Don't disrespect Nations League hero Ethan Horvath like that.
I would never.
He saved the Mexico penalty in the Nations League final that let the U.S. win 3-2. Fun fact for you there.
That is a fun fact.
And then he took a Horvath.
Horvath. I mean, maybe he did. Shit.
I already wasted joke time, but this is just a special shout out to my wife's grandmother. May she rest in peace. One of the most beautiful women I've ever known. My kids would run up and down the stairs, and more than once, she just said something like, "Oh, those kids are having so much fun. They're like horse drawers, up and down and up and down and up and down."
Is that like Hell's Bells? Is that ACD's B-side to Hell's Bells?
Where's Troy?
Horse drawers, going up and down. Horse drawers, they stink all around. Horse drawers. Okay, I'm done.
I bet they do stink. Fuck.
Welcome to the show.
That's what whores do. That's exactly what they do.
Broke our guest.
We broke her.
Guys, I have an interview tomorrow.
Unplug yourself and plug yourself back in.
I should.
You have an interview right now. Let's go. Come on.
I'm trying to finish this story. You guys are talking about horse drawers.
You're the one talking about Horvath.
Because Kyle asked me who the goalie was. He asked me what a goalie was.
Who's a goalie? Who, where, what, when, why, how, and why again?
This is the hard-hitting journalism you get from this show. Who, what, where, when, was.
I'm just imagining like those old Wendy's commercials. Where's the goalie? Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? Are you saying that Kyle's a geriatric old lady?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's exactly what she's saying.
If the orthopedic shoe fits.
He hasn't had a hip replacement yet.
Emphasis on yet.
Oh, my stomach hurts now. I got tears streaming down my face.
Mission accomplished.
Bearhalter outs Geo. Geo writes a tweet with 2 spaces, so we know he didn't write it. And then...
Okay, so then, unbeknownst to us until yesterday, at that same time, December 11th, Danielle Reyna and Claudia Reyna, Gio's parents, seeing this being said about their son, they're very angry about it. And so I'm going to read you a part from the Athletic article about it. To set the record, this is from Danielle Reyna herself. To set the record straight, I did call U.S. Sporting Director Earnie Stewart on December 11th, just after the news broke that Greg had made negative statements about my son Gio at a leadership conference. I have known Earnie for years and consider him to be a close friend. Okay, pause. Keep in mind. Remember all that stuff that I said about U.S. soccer being just a boys' club filled with their own friends and family? This is where that all comes in. I wanted to let him know that I was absolutely outraged and devastated that Gio had been put in such a terrible position, and that I felt very personally betrayed by the actions of someone my family had considered a friend for decades. Because remember, like, these are roommates, best friends, best men at their wedding. As part of that conversation, I told Earnie that I thought it was especially unfair that Gio, who had apologized for acting immaturely about his playing time, was still being dragged through the mud when Greg had asked for and received forgiveness for doing something so much worse at the same age. And I'm going to pause that statement there, because what we found out yesterday and what she called to tell Earnie Stewart on December 11th was that 30 years ago,
30 years ago,
when Greg Berhalter was 18 years old, he got drunk one night, and him and Rosalind, his wife, his now wife.
I don't mean to interrupt, but he's 18 years old, Dev, which means he has 4 years left before he's considered old in the world of soccer.
Yep, exactly 4.
No, he has 9, and then he's old.
His 18 peachy self got drunk, and he obviously had an argument with his future wife, Rosalind, and because he was so drunk, and his anger issues have been talked about by former teammates before, just that he was,
and because he's a soccer player.
Yeah, and
this is important. And because he's a soccer player,
the kicker, so they say.
Dun dun dun.
I feel bad for this. Like, this is domestic abuse. He kicked Rosalind, and they ended up working through it, obviously, because she ended up marrying him. And they've been together since for 25 years. I think they just celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. They didn't involve the police in this. They kind of only kept it between friends and family, close friends and family. And this is the report that we received on Wednesday, that Greg Berhalter, he came out and made a statement on Twitter, saying that he admitted to all this, and that somebody... This is where it gets interesting. When he made this statement on Twitter admitting to all this, he said that he was blackmailed and that somebody, during the course of the World Cup, somebody had threatened to go to U.S. Soccer with damaging information about him. And that's what he says. And then in the rest of it, he owns up to what he did. And he says that, we've worked through it and I've worked through it to become a better person. So, listen. What Greg did is a really shitty thing. Obviously, I don't think any of us are going to deny that.
No, you don't physically assault another person.
Of course.
It's not cool, especially someone of the opposite sex. That is even more uncool.
So it's uncool, but it's obvious that...
He kicks like a bitch. Obviously, he kicks like a bitch.
Apparently, yeah. It's obvious that they settled their differences and they settled through it. And because Rosalind herself, is not in any current danger, it's kind of a shitty thing to come forward with this and to try and, use this as just as a way to make Greg look bad, especially towards Rosalind, because like I said, she's not in any danger right now. And so in this sort of case, unless the person being abused is in current danger, it should be up to then when, how, and if their story gets told. And so it's really unfortunate to her that this is all coming out. And so Greg makes this statement, and then U.S. Soccer comes out with a statement saying that he received, like, basically saying the same thing that Greg did, and that they're looking into an investigation for it, because this is the other thing that's kind of concerning people, is that, you know, when they started this investigation, they came across like a few other instances of like staff members, you know, being abused by other people. Like, we haven't heard any other information on that. When something like this comes across your desk, you kind of like have to go fully in depth with it. And like when you're looking into this, because you want to know like if the head national team coach is like doing shit wrong, you're going to find like other shit.
I don't understand why you suddenly think it's like some moral imperative on the behalf of people working in soccer and FIFA and the U.S. national team. They're like, now all of a sudden they're like, and now we're going to do a good job on this investigation. That's the counterpoint where I'm like, why do we expect that there's going to be a good investigation?
Look, I don't expect there to be, unless somebody else is running it, I don't expect there to be, but like I think it's just because like we covered before with the women's team, there's just been so much shit in the past, you know, few months and years that they kind of have to, like, they're on thin ice with this type of stuff. And so we hear about that shit we see the statement and stuff on Wednesday. And then I remember, like, as I was going to bed, I saw a tweet, and it was from like a journalist, like a soccer journalist. And he was saying like, just wait for tomorrow, folks. And I was like, oh God, tomorrow comes around, which is really yesterday as we're recording this, January 4th, I guess. Fuck.
Time is a weird soup.
Time is a weird soup.
Time is a capitalist invention. We've covered that.
Oh, yes. That's correct.
Anyways, when this came out, so the next day comes, and all of a sudden we see the ESPN article drop. Claudio Reyna is the one that released the info about Greg Berhalter in, you know, abusing his wife. And from there, it's just absolute chaos. And so basically what we get is this, and I'm going to finish kind of that statement from Danielle that I had started. I told Earnie that I thought it was especially unfair that Gio, this is the call that she made to him on January 11th. I told Earnie that I thought it was especially unfair that Gio, who had apologized for acting immaturely about his playing time, was still being dragged through the mud when Greg had asked for and received forgiveness for doing something so much worse at the same age. Without going into detail, the statements from yesterday significantly minimized the abuse on the night in question, which is like a very bold statement to make as well, like, because Greg is saying that he just kicked her. And so now she's saying that it's actually like more than that. So I don't know who to believe at this point. Rosalind Berhalter was my roommate, teammate, and best friend, and I supported her through that trauma that followed. It took a long time for me to forgive and accept Greg afterward, but I worked hard to give him grace and ultimately made both of them and their kids a huge part of my family's life. I would have wanted and expected him to give that same grace to Gio. This is why the current situation is so very hurtful and hard. At the time, I called Earnie. Many people were trashing Gio on social media due to Greg's comments, and I didn't know when or if this would stop. I just wanted Earnie to help make sure that there would be no further unwarranted attacks on my son. I thought our conversation would remain in confidence.
Declare your love for either Gio or Greg. You choose.
You choose Jesus instead. I thought our conversation would remain in confidence, and it didn't occur to me at the time that anything I said could lead to an investigation. I'm not criticizing Ernie here. I very much commend the recent efforts by U.S. Soccer to address abuse of women players, and I understand how he had an obligation to investigate what I shared, but I want to be very clear that I did not ask for Greg to be fired, I did not make any threats, and I don't know anything about any blackmail attempts, nor have I ever had any discussions about anyone else on Greg's staff. I don't know any of the other coaches. I did not communicate with anyone in U.S. Soccer about this matter before December 11th, and no one else in my family has made any statements to U.S. Soccer regarding Greg's past at all. And so that's where we're at now. Basically, I just want to say this. You know, this is what happens when U.S. Soccer
Didn't Claudio fire Greg's son from Austin FC too?
So Claudio Reyna is also the sporting director at Austin FC, and Greg's Berhalter son, Sebastian Berhalter, who I'm not trying to be mean here, he's just not a very good player. He was released by Austin FC. He's now playing for like the Toronto MLS team, but yeah, he was released by Austin FC before all this happened. So if you want to go down that route,
Claudio's job at Austin FC, is he in charge of deciding who's a player and who's not?
I mean, sporting director, I don't know if he would have made that decision, and like, because it's an I think it was the academy level. I'm not sure. I really don't know enough about this aspect of it, but sporting director is a pretty important job.
And that you wildly speculate. That is what we do on this show.
I mean, shit, if we want to go down that road, then yeah, that's why. This is why Greg didn't start Gio, because we still don't know that, by the way. So we still don't know why he decided not to play Gio Reyna at the World Cup, even though he's one of the best players we have, which again is a fireable offense in my opinion. I'm just saying, trying to be.
I believe that it's because Claudio fired Sebastian. I think that this is breaking news.
And there you have it, folks. The full story is out.
Story was released.
It is out there, speculation and all.
Can we just talk about, though?
By sporting news.
I understand how emotional it must be to want to defend your kid, especially like the Reynas, because if you're not aware, they've had some trauma in the past with their kids. That's a whole nother story. We don't have time for that. We're going so long. So they're very protective of their kids. And so, I understand being emotional and calling and wanting to complain, but like, you can't do that. And also the fact that she thought that she could bring up something like as serious as domestic abuse, and that Earnie Stewart was not going to, look into that more and see like, is this dude, abusing our players and staff? Like, that's just so naive of her.
I will close out with.
I think that what she thought was, I didn't think he hurted her.
Hurted her?
Hurted her.
He didn't hurted her? He didn't hurt her.
I'm on my third scotch, Dev. Stop. He didn't hurt her. He's got Berhalter legs. It's not like he's got Reyna legs. He's got Berhalter legs.
Oh,
she
God.
wasn't that messed up. I didn't expect there to be an investigation. That has to be her position.
I will close with my final statement on the whole matter of it. It comes down to when a parent feels their child has been scorned in some way, you say and do some irreprehensible shit sometimes in the heat of the moment. And then when you put it in to the fact that it's a close-knit kind of chosen family between the Berhalters and Reynas, you hurt the ones you love the most. So there, and then the fact that they're in a public eye on a international stage, it becomes even more, and it's soccer, and then the whole diva concept, and
exactly,
yeah, and here we are.
That's exactly that. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the problem. When I said, like, it all stems from this higher problem of U.S. soccer being run horribly by its leadership and having a boys team that, a boys club that only, hire their friends and family, because, I mean, that's why they say, don't work with friends and family, because when you're comfortable with people, that line of professionalism is pushed because you're more comfortable with them. So you'll do things and talk about things that you shouldn't in a professional setting. And that's why this has all happened. That's why she was so hurt by Greg benching Gio. That's why she felt so comfortable with Earnie to complain about this. It's embarrassing at the end of the day for U.S. soccer and for us as like American fans. I mean, I'm not personally embarrassed. It's embarrassing for U.S. soccer to have this going forward. Youth sports drama problems on our national team.
There you have it. You heard it here first. Youth sports drama on a national scale. That's the American way.
As an active participant in youth sports, absolutely, that's what this is.
I will say there is a very, very gross part of me, the 12-year-old part of me that had to sit through all the, bullshit of like the politics of my travel team and kids playing because their parents were important to the club. That is getting a really good sense of gratification from this and from the embarrassment of that system. 12-year-old me is rocking right now.
I have come out in favor of not doing anything important with your friends. And that's why I started this podcast with a guy who wasn't my friend yet.
Yep.
So eventually you're going to have to quit because it's going to get to that point.
As soon as we become friends, we'll quit this show, Dev.
Then were we supposed to stop then? Fuck. We're doing it wrong.
That means I get more work because I just constantly redo the logo and all the overlays. So I just get paid for that continuously.
Hey, this is job security.
This is more job security than Greg Berhalter at US Soccer.
Speaking of people you're doing your friends and shows with, you've officially beat Sid's timer, Amanda.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go. We didn't credit you at the beginning for being Sid's partner on the Any Truers podcast, but we'll credit you at the end. You
Get
have
that plug in.
Hell yeah.
Made it beyond his time. I have been absolutely fascinated by all of the stories that you have for us tonight. And we didn't even get to the story.
I know.
Stolen World Cup trophy.
We'll save that for part 2.
Let's hope that this podcast has the reverse effect that the crypto podcast had, where we talked all the great things about crypto, and then crypto just the economy as a whole kind of shit the bed last year.
No, we've talked about U.S. men's soccer, and now it's going to burn to.
No, it's going to reverse. It's going to flourish and become an actual powerhouse.
Phoenix from the ashes.
Exactly.
All the horrible
that is
people
2023
working for U.S. Soccer are going to retire and step down, and we'll have actual good people. But yeah.
Yes.
I hope
this
you
is
guys...
the good juju year of Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse. Everything is going to be good.
We need to get Ibrahim on this.
Yes, we're going to get Ibrahim on before the end of 2023. He's going to cast some voodoo magic, give some good juju out, all protective spells, except for maybe a few on certain orange people.
I mean,
their cohorts.
Orange people? Racism?
I didn't say any names. I learned from Greg Berhalter. I didn't say any names.
Don't worry. This is off the record for sure.
Off the record.
Nobody's listening to this except for my FBI agent.
We will have you back for a bonus Patreon episode. How about that, Amanda? For
Hell
the
yeah.
stolen FIFA trophy.
I am 100% down.
Patreon.com/DevandKyle. Check it out. Amanda, I have been Kyle, and you
have been Amanda.
And I've been Dev.
And we have attempted to start the apocalypse. Good night, everybody.
Yeehaw!
Woo!
Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse is brought to you every other week with a full archive available at devandkyle.com. The Apocalypse theme and other music in the show is written and performed by Chase Noseworthy. He's Chase Noseworthy on YouTube or at NoseworthyChase on Twitter. All graphic design for Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse has been created by Dead Vision. Find her work on Twitter and Insta at XDADOTTER and book her immense talents at xdadotter.com. Audio engineering provided by Cassandra Umsong. She can make you sound even better than Dev and Kyle because you'll provide much better raw materials. Get in touch with her on Twitter at coffeewithcoom. That's coffee with COUM. Dev and Kyle support artists and creatives of all types. Exposure is for film. Artists need compensation. If you're interested in becoming an Apocalypto to help keep supporting all of the artists who make Dev and Kyle sound passably professional, please consider becoming a sustaining patron at patreon.com/devandkyle. Show notes, transcripts, and any other information from this episode should be available at devandkyle.com if Dev and or Kyle did their job. Fingers crossed. Finally, deeply and sincerely, Dev and Kyle think that you are a wonderful person who deserves love and compassion. We hope our small gift of what we consider interesting or entertaining has made your day even the tiniest bit better. Thank you for liking or subscribing in your favorite podcast app. And if you think others may want to know about this show, consider leaving a review in that same podcast app. It really helps us spread the word. Thank you.